The number 6666, its mere mention can send shivers down the spine of many, invoking images of evil, the apocalypse, and the rise of the Antichrist. But what if everything we've been told about this number is wrong? What if the truth behind 666, this misunderstood verse in the Bible, has been obscured by centuries of misinterpretation, fear, and superstition? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of mystery surrounding this number and reveal its true meaning. First, it's essential to recognize that the number 666 found in the Book of Revelation has become one of the most notorious symbols in human history. We've all heard of it in passing, whether through sermons, movies, books, or pop culture. But how many of us truly understand its biblical context? How many of us know why it holds such a fearful reputation and why it's been associated with Satan and all things dark? The truth is that most interpretations of 666 are rooted in fear, not understanding. From childhood, we are taught that this number is inherently evil, a mark of the beast, something to be avoided or feared. But why is this the case? And more importantly, is that the correct interpretation? Let's start by asking, what was the original purpose of the number 666? Was it truly a forewarning of something dark and apocalyptic, or was it something else entirely? In Revelation, when the number is mentioned, it's associated with the mark of the beast, a figure that has become the subject of countless theories, books, and films. But in reality, this number and its meaning may have been much more symbolic, spiritual, and intricate than what popular culture has led us to believe. What if 666 wasn't intended to be a sign of doom, but rather a profound symbol of spiritual transformation, one that calls humanity to wake up and recognize the errors of its ways? In the world of biblical numerology, numbers have deep symbolic meanings. For instance, the number 7 represents perfection and divine completion, often associated with God's creation. But what about the number 6? In biblical terms, 6 represents imperfection, a number just shy of completion, a symbol of human fallibility. And when you triple that imperfection, 666, it doesn't necessarily mean the rise of evil. Rather, it could represent the imperfection of humanity on a grand scale. Instead of seeing 666 as a harbinger of destruction, perhaps it's a reminder of our own spiritual struggle, our need to evolve, and our capacity for growth. What's truly fascinating is that the number 666 has been interpreted differently over time. Many early Christian scholars linked it to the Roman Emperor Nero, seeing the number as a coded message to Christians in the midst of persecution. It wasn't about the future. It was about the present, about the Roman Empire's oppressive power and the suffering it caused. Could it be that 666 was never meant to be a prediction about the end of the world, but a comment on the political and social structures of the time? Could the beast refer not to an apocalyptic figure in the future, but to the very real powers of the past that sought to control and oppress? In this video, we'll dive into the hidden layers of 666, exploring its biblical context, its historical significance, and its deeper spiritual meanings. By the end of this journey, you may come to see this number in a completely new light, one that is less about fear and more about personal transformation and spiritual awakening. We'll explore the connection between 666 and the Roman Emperor Nero, dissect the meaning of the number itself, and look at how modern Christianity has shaped our understanding of the mark of the beast. We'll also examine the esoteric and symbolic aspects of 666, including its deeper connections to human imperfection and the need for spiritual growth. By the end, you'll have a fresh perspective on the number 666-61 that reveals not just an ancient code, but an invitation for each of us to embark on a spiritual journey toward greater understanding, self-awareness, and ultimately redemption. So stay with us as we uncover the real meaning of 666. It's not what you were taught. To truly understand the meaning of 666, we must first dive deep into its biblical origins, starting with the specific verse in the book of Revelation. Revelation 13:18 is where the number is introduced, stating, "This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." The verse itself seems almost cryptic, as it challenges the reader to calculate the number, hinting that it has a deeper meaning than simply being a number to fear. But what does this calculation really mean? Why is 666 specifically singled out? And what does it have to do with the beast? The first clue lies in the phrase, "the number of a man." In ancient times, numbers held a profound symbolic significance. The Hebrew and Greek alphabets were not just letters, but also numbers, and this system is known as gematria. In gematria, each letter of a word has a corresponding numerical value. Therefore, the number 66666 can be derived by calculating the numerical values of the letters in specific words. The early church fathers, including Saint Irenaeus and Hippolytus, identified this number with the Roman Emperor Nero, who was notorious for his brutal persecution of Christians. By using gematria, scholars found that the name Nero Caesar in Hebrew adds up to 666. This provides a strong historical link between the number 666 and Nero, which brings us to the first major point. Revelation 13:18 was likely a reference to the tyrannical rule of Nero, not a prophecy about a future supernatural figure. This interpretation aligns with the context of the book of Revelation, which is widely believed to have been written during a time of intense Roman persecution of Christians. The Christians of the time were facing severe oppression under Nero's regime, and many scholars argue that the book was written as a form of coded resistance. Revelation's apocalyptic imagery, including the beast and the number 666, may have been a way for early Christians to address the powers that were oppressing them without directly challenging the Roman authorities. Furthermore, the biblical context of Revelation presents a vision of cosmic struggle between divine forces of good and malevolent forces of evil. The beast that 666 represents is a symbol of oppressive power, often interpreted as a political or imperial force that stands against the divine will. Whether it's the Roman Empire in the 1st century or the various oppressive systems of today, 666 symbolizes the manifestation of human systems that strive for control and domination. The number represents humanity's collective imperfection, the systems that humans create that veer away from spiritual enlightenment, and the internal struggles we face to overcome these systems. In light of this, the number 666 should not simply be viewed as a future prophecy, but rather as a timeless symbol of oppression, tyranny, and the corruption of human systems. It is the number of imperfection of human-made forces that try to dominate and control. The beast itself then represents not just a future figure, but a more universal concept of evil, something that emerges from the hearts of men and their creations. Moreover, Revelation 13:18 challenges us to calculate the number, which suggests that the understanding of 666 is not as straightforward as it may seem. It invites us to engage with the text on a deeper level, to seek wisdom and understanding, rather than accepting superficial interpretations that serve to instill fear. This brings us to an important question. Why do so many people still misunderstand the meaning of 666? Historically, much of the fear surrounding the number has been driven by cultural and religious misinterpretations. Over the centuries, various Christian traditions have attached all kinds of meanings to 666, often relating it to end-time prophecies, the Antichrist, and apocalyptic visions. However, these interpretations often overlook the historical context in which the number was originally mentioned. Instead of reading 666 through the lens of fear and future doom, we must begin to understand it within the context of the first-century Christian experience, a community under siege, struggling to maintain its faith in the face of brutal oppression. This historical perspective is crucial in uncovering the true meaning of 666. It's not just a number associated with the apocalypse, it's a symbol of human struggle, a reflection of the spiritual challenges humanity faces in every age. By recognizing 666 as a representation of political tyranny, societal oppression, and the spiritual battle between good and evil, we begin to see that it's not merely a prediction, but a call to awareness and action. Now that we have established the historical and symbolic context of 666, it's time to delve deeper into its connection with the Roman Emperor Nero. Was he truly the beast, or is there something more profound at play here? To continue our exploration of 666, we must examine the historical figure most often linked to the number Roman Emperor Nero. Understanding this connection sheds light on why early Christian communities viewed Nero as a central figure in the Book of Revelation, and how 666 was used as a form of coded resistance. The number 666 is not simply a mysterious figure. It was a symbol rooted in the political and social realities of the first century, particularly the oppressive reign of Nero. Nero ruled from 54 to 68 CE, and his reign is infamous for its cruelty, including the violent persecution of Christians. In the wake of the Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE, Nero blamed the Christians for the disaster, using them as scapegoats to divert attention from his own possible role in the fire. This led to one of the most brutal periods of Christian persecution in Roman history. Christians were arrested, tortured, and executed in horrifying ways, and Nero's actions became synonymous with cruelty and tyranny. This persecution left a profound mark on the early Christian community, shaping their understanding of suffering, resistance, and divine justice. It is against this backdrop that the number 666 emerged in the Book of Revelation. In early Christian thought, 666 was not merely a numerical code, but a symbol of Nero's reign of terror. The famous gematria method, in which letters are assigned numerical values, played a crucial role in linking Nero to the number. When the letters of Nero Caesar are transliterated into Hebrew, the total value adds up to 666. This discovery was not lost on early Christian writers, who saw it as a clear indicator that the beast referred to in Revelation was in fact the Roman Emperor Nero. by using 6666 as a code for Nero, the author of Revelation traditionally believed to be the Apostle John, was providing a way for Christians to understand their suffering and oppression. Revelation is filled with apocalyptic imagery, but much of it was likely intended as symbolic commentary on the situation of the time. Rather than being a prediction of some future tyrant, the book was likely a cryptic message of hope and resistance to those living under Roman oppression. 666, in this context, represented the forces of tyranny and corruption embodied by Nero, but it also signified the power of resistance and the eventual triumph of good over evil. Additionally, Revelation's apocalyptic themes, including the number 666, were part of a larger Jewish tradition of symbolic resistance to foreign oppression. The Hebrew Bible contains numerous examples of prophetic literature in which oppressive regimes are depicted as beasts or monsters, such as the visions of Daniel, who also uses beasts as symbols of tyrannical empires. This tradition influenced the way early Christians read and interpreted Revelation. By casting Nero as the beast with the number 666, the writer of Revelation was placing him within this long line of oppressive rulers who would eventually be overthrown by divine power. In the context of the Roman Empire, this interpretation was deeply significant. It provided early Christians with a way to understand their struggles as part of a larger cosmic battle between good and evil. The number 666 became a symbol of human cruelty and corruption, but it also carried the promise that such powers would not prevail forever. This was not just a warning, it was a message of hope. The forces of tyranny, whether represented by Nero or any other oppressive power, were ultimately doomed to fail. The true power lay with the divine, and it was through spiritual perseverance that Christians would find redemption. But why was this message encoded in such a mysterious way? Why didn't the writer of Revelation simply name Nero outright? The answer lies in the nature of persecution itself. At the time, Revelation was written openly criticizing Nero, or the Roman Empire could have led to severe punishment, including death. So the use of coded language allowed the Christian community to communicate their message of resistance without directly antagonizing the Roman authorities. By encoding the name of Nero in the number 666, the writer ensured that only those with the knowledge and understanding would be able to decipher the true meaning. The significance of this historical connection between Nero and 6666 cannot be overstated. It reframes the number as a symbol of resistance and survival rather than one of doom and destruction. By understanding the context in which 666 was written, we can begin to see it not as an ominous prediction of future events, but as a call to recognize the cycles of oppression that have plagued humanity throughout history. In this light becomes a timeless symbol of tyranny, a reminder that such systems will rise and fall, but the struggle for spiritual freedom and justice continues. However, the story of 66666 doesn't end with Nero. Over the centuries, the meaning of this number has evolved, taking on new interpretations and associations. So what does it mean for us today? Is the number 6666 still relevant in modern Christianity and beyond? To answer this question, we need to explore how buying 666 is understood in contemporary Christian eschatology, and why it continues to be such a powerful symbol. As we move into modern Christian eschatology, the number 666 continues to captivate believers and non-believers alike. It has evolved from a historical symbol linked to Nero and his tyranny to a core element of end-time prophecy, often associated with the rise of the Antichrist and the so-called Mark of the Beast. This shift in interpretation reflects how deeply the number has penetrated into popular culture and Christian theology, but it also reveals the dangers of misinterpretation and oversimplification. In contemporary Christian eschatology, 666 is often tied to apocalyptic teachings about the end of days and the return of Christ. Within this framework, the beast of Revelation symbolized by 666 is seen as an ultimate evil figure, typically identified as the Antichrist. The idea is that the Antichrist will come in the last days, deceiving many and leading them into a false system of worship, culminating in the infamous Mark of the Beast. This mark, many believe, will be a literal sign, whether a tattoo, microchip, or other form of identification that identifies individuals as followers of the Antichrist, thus sealing their fate in the coming judgment. However, this interpretation of 666 as a literal mark of an individual is not universally accepted, and many scholars argue that such a view misses the symbolic depth of the number. In fact, there is a significant difference between reading Revelation as a prophetic prediction of future events and reading it as a timeless allegory of the human condition and spiritual struggle. The traditional view, which expects a single charismatic figure to rise and impose a global system of control, is largely shaped by later theological developments, especially in the 19th and 20th centuries. One of the major drivers of this modern interpretation is the rise of dispensationalism, a 19th century theological movement that emphasized a literal reading of the Bible and the prediction of future events. This movement has greatly influenced contemporary Christian thought, particularly through the Left Behind series and other popular media. Dispensationalists view the number 666 as a clear signal that the end times are near, with the Antichrist poised to establish his reign of terror. This view of 666 is ingrained in much of evangelical Christianity, especially in the United States, and it is often linked to fears about global conspiracies, totalitarian regimes, and technological control. The number 666 in this view is a warning to the faithful to be vigilant and prepared for the imminent return of Christ. But how does this modern interpretation align with the ancient historical meaning of 666? In many ways, it diverges significantly. While the original context of 666 was rooted in the struggles of early Christians against Roman oppression, symbolizing resistance to imperial power, the modern interpretation focuses more on futuristic apocalyptic visions of a global conspiracy. The historical connection to Nero and the Roman Empire is often ignored, replaced by a fear of a coming world order. One of the most significant aspects of modern interpretations of 666 is its emphasis on a one-world government and the control of society through technology. This view is often linked to fears about globalization, the surveillance state, and the increasing role of technology in our lives. Some even suggest that the number 666 may be a hidden code for new technologies, like biometric identification or digital currencies. While these fears may reflect valid concerns about the misuse of technology, they also reflect a deeper misunderstanding of the biblical text. Revelation, when properly understood, is not primarily about predicting future technological advancements or government systems. It is about understanding the forces of oppression and control that have existed throughout history. Instead of focusing on specific technologies or political systems, we should look at the deeper spiritual lessons that 666 imparts. The number 666 is not merely a warning about a future dictator or global conspiracy. It is a call to recognize the power of human systems to distort truth and lead people away from spiritual enlightenment. In modern eschatology, 666 can be seen as a symbol of the beast within all of us, the internal forces of fear, greed, and control that hinder our spiritual growth and evolution. This perspective calls for a more introspective and spiritual reading of Revelation 1 that invites individuals to reflect on their own lives and actions, rather than simply looking outward for a future enemy. Additionally, the modern fascination with the number 66666 in the context of the Antichrist often overlooks the more important themes of Revelation, such as the ultimate triumph of good over evil, the restoration of spiritual order, and the establishment of a new heaven and earth. The end times, as described in Revelation, are not just about destruction and chaos. They are about transformation and renewal. The victory of Christ over the forces of evil is not just a future event. It is a spiritual reality that can be experienced in the here and now. Thus, while 666 is often associated with the apocalyptic future in popular Christian eschatology, its true meaning extends far beyond this narrow interpretation. It is a symbol that transcends time and space, one that invites us to confront the forces of oppression, corruption, and spiritual blindness that exist both in the world around us and within our own hearts. In this sense, 666 is not just a number to be feared, but a number to be understood, a key to unlocking the deeper mysteries of Revelation and our own spiritual awakening. So as we move forward in this exploration, it is important to remember that 666 is not merely a number of doom and despair. It is a number that calls us to spiritual awakening and transformation, urging us to confront the forces that hold us back from realizing our highest potential. Now that we've established the historical and modern interpretations of 666, let's delve into the deeper esoteric meanings behind this number. While the majority of interpretations focus on political, historical, or apocalyptic perspectives, the true essence of 666 may be far more spiritual and personal. In esoteric teachings, 666 is not just a symbol of evil or oppression, but a representation of human imperfection and the spiritual journey toward enlightenment. The number 6 in biblical numerology is often associated with imperfection, as it falls short of the number 7, which symbolizes divine perfection and completion. When we triple the number 6, forming 666, it amplifies this sense of imperfection, but also hints at the potential for growth, transformation, and completion. 666, in its truest form, may represent humanity's struggle with its lower nature, with the forces that keep us grounded in materialism, fear, and ignorance. It is a symbol of our spiritual unfinishedness, our need to grow, evolve, and transcend our earthly limitations. In many esoteric traditions, the concept of man's imperfection is central to understanding our purpose on this earth. The ancient mystery schools, such as those in Egypt and Greece, taught that the soul's journey through life was one of gradual refinement and transformation. This process of spiritual ascent was often depicted through symbols, including numbers, and 666 can be seen as one such symbol of humanity's journey, from imperfection to spiritual wholeness. In this light, 6 is not something to be feared, but rather something to be embraced as a part of the human condition. It represents the lower unconscious forces within us, the fear, greed, anger, and ignorance that hold us back from our true potential. But it also represents the possibility of transcendence. Just as a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, the number 666 reflects the spiritual alchemy that occurs when we confront and overcome our inner darkness. It is a reminder that our imperfections are not the end of the story. They are simply a part of our growth process. This idea of 66 by 6 as a symbol of spiritual struggle and transformation is also reflected in the teachings of Kabbalah, the mystical tradition of Jewish mysticism. In Kabbalistic teachings, numbers are seen as the building blocks of the universe, each carrying with it a hidden spiritual meaning. The number 6 in particular is associated with the sphere of Tiferet, which represents harmony, balance, and beauty. However, when 6 is repeated 3 times in 60 by 6, it takes on a new meaning, one that reflects the need for balance and harmony to be achieved through the overcoming of personal and collective imperfections. The 66686 is thus a call for introspection and self-awareness. It is a reminder that the true battle lies not in the external world, but within ourselves. The beast in this context is not just an external force to be defeated. It is the internal darkness that we must confront in order to awaken to our true spiritual potential. In this sense, the number 6 represents a crossroads where we must choose between remaining in the shadows of fear and materialism, or stepping into the light of spiritual awakening and transformation. Further, in some esoteric traditions, 66666 is also connected to the concept of the fall of man. The fall, as described in many religious and spiritual texts, is a moment of separation from the divine, often symbolized by the loss of Eden or a fall from grace. This separation creates a void, a distance between humanity and the divine source. However, in esoteric teachings, the fall is not seen as a permanent condition, but as a necessary part of the soul's journey. The number 666 therefore could be interpreted as representing humanity's fall into materiality and the dense lower realms of existence. But it also points toward the possibility of spiritual redemption, the return to divine consciousness, and the restoration of balance. This understanding of 666 as a spiritual symbol of transformation also ties into the concept of the soul's journey in many ancient traditions. For instance, in Hermeticism, there is an emphasis on the process of inner purification and enlightenment. The soul, according to Hermetic teachings, is on a constant journey to achieve union with the divine. The number 6 can be seen as a representation of the soul's struggle with its earthly nature, the forces that keep it bound to the physical world, and its eventual journey toward spiritual liberation. Thus, the true meaning of 666 is not to be found in fear of a future apocalypse or an impending Antichrist figure. Rather, it is a symbol of the soul's evolution, its battle with lower instincts, and its ultimate aspiration towards spiritual awakening and divine union. The number 666 serves as both a warning and a guide, a call to action for those who seek to transcend the limitations of the material world and awaken to their higher nature. In this esoteric light, 666 becomes a number of empowerment. It is not something to be feared, but something to be understood and embraced. It is the mark of a soul in transition, caught between the material and spiritual realms, but with the potential to transcend all that binds it to earthly imperfection. It is a number that reminds us of the power of transformation, the ability to turn darkness into light, and the ever-present possibility of spiritual growth. So as we examine 6K9, and in this deeper esoteric context, we come to see it not as a curse, but as an opportunity, a spiritual crossroads, where the individual can choose to confront their imperfections and evolve into a higher state of being. As we continue our exploration of 6K9, we must consider its relevance to the age of Aquarius, a time of profound spiritual transformation and awakening. The age of Aquarius, which many believe has already begun, is characterized by shifts in consciousness, a deepening connection to higher truths, and a collective move away from materialism towards spiritual enlightenment. In this context, the number 666 takes on a new, deeply symbolic meaning that speaks to the spiritual evolution of humanity. The age of Aquarius is often associated with the rise of collective consciousness, greater unity among humanity, and a heightened awareness of our interconnectedness with the universe. This astrological age marks the transition from the more individualistic and materialistic age of Pisces, bringing with it a new era of spiritual growth, enlightenment, and freedom. In this age, people are beginning to see through the illusion of separation and are opening up to the realization that we are all part of a greater whole. But what does this have to do with 666 Ibaka? To understand the connection we need to explore the symbolism behind the number and how it reflects the challenges we face as we transition into a higher state of awareness. As we've previously discussed, the number 6 represents imperfection, falling short of divine completion of spiritual perfection. In this sense, 6 could be seen as a symbol of humanity's current state, caught between the material world and the spiritual potential that awaits us. The age of Aquarius offers a transformative opportunity for humanity to move beyond this state of imperfection. The number 666 in this context can be understood as a call to recognize our current limitations, the forces that hold us back from our higher potential, and the need to embrace transformation. In the age of Aquarius, the journey from imperfection represented by 696 to spiritual wholeness becomes not just possible, but inevitable. The shift from fear and materialism to spiritual awakening is the very essence of what the age of Aquarius represents. This transition is not just about a change in the external world, but also about an internal transformation. As individuals awaken to the higher dimensions of their being, they begin to release the forces of fear, ego, and material attachment that bind them to the lower aspects of existence. In this way, 66666 serves as both a reminder and a guide, showing us where we currently stand in our spiritual journey. The number's repetitive nature, 6666, indicates that this is a process that requires continuous effort, reflection, and growth. The age of Aquarius is calling humanity to embrace a new way of living, one based not on power and control, but on love, unity, and spiritual truth. The number 666, with its connection to human imperfection, serves as a powerful symbol of the need for transformation. It reminds us that the work of the soul is ongoing, and that we must continually strive to overcome our lower impulses, our fear-based thinking, and our attachment to the material world. Furthermore, the number 666 is deeply connected to the idea of collective awakening. As humanity moves through the spiritual shift of the Age of Aquarius, we are not only evolving as individuals, but as a collective consciousness. 6666 symbolizes the collective struggle to rise above the limitations imposed by societal structures, political systems, and collective fear. Just as 6666 can be seen as a personal challenge to transcend one's own imperfections, it can also represent the collective challenge to overcome the oppressive forces that limit human potential on a global scale. This collective awakening is already underway with movements around the world calling for unity, justice, and spiritual awareness. The rise of global consciousness and the increasing desire for social and environmental justice are key indicators that the Age of Aquarius is manifesting in real time. In this context, 1696 is not a sign of doom, but a symbol of the challenges we must face in order to awaken to our true potential as individuals and as a global community. It is a reminder that transformation, both personal and collective, is an ongoing process, one that requires us to confront our imperfections and evolve into higher states of consciousness. As we move forward into the Age of Aquarius, the number 666 may also serve as a catalyst for self-awareness. By confronting the symbolism of 666, individuals are prompted to examine their own fears, doubts, and attachments that hold them back from spiritual growth. The Age of Aquarius demands that we let go of old patterns of thinking and living, and 666, in its symbolic form, challenges us to face these patterns head-on. It forces us to recognize the areas in our lives where we are still bound by limitation, whether that be through materialism, fear of the unknown, or attachments to outdated belief systems. In this sense, 666 is not a symbol of the Antichrist or a mark of the beast, but a representation of the spiritual challenges that accompany the transition into a higher state of consciousness. The Age of Aquarius, with its focus on unity, spiritual awakening, and collective consciousness, calls us to rise above the forces that seek to divide and oppress us. It calls us to confront the beast within our own fear, ego, and attachments, and transcend them in order to reach a state of divine wholeness. The Age of Aquarius also invites us to recognize the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of collective spiritual awakening. The transformation of the individual is mirrored in the transformation of society as a whole. Just as the individual must overcome their own imperfections, so too must humanity collectively rise above the systems of control and oppression that limit our potential. 666, in this sense, becomes a powerful symbol of the work we must do both individually and collectively in order to achieve spiritual liberation and collective ascension. As we continue to explore the mysteries of 666 and its connection to the Age of Aquarius, it becomes clear that this number represents far more than a fearful prophecy or a symbol of doom. It is a call to action, a reminder of the spiritual work that lies ahead, and an invitation to embrace the transformation that is already underway. Having explored the historical, modern, and esoteric interpretations of 666, it's time to turn our focus to redemption, how understanding this number can lead to spiritual growth, inner peace, and a deeper understanding of our divine nature. For centuries, 666 has been misunderstood and feared, but in truth, it holds the key to understanding our journey as individuals and as a collective. The fear surrounding 666 often arises from its association with the mark of the beast, the figure of the Antichrist, and apocalyptic visions of global destruction. This negative interpretation has created an atmosphere of terror and superstition around the number, preventing many from delving into its true meaning. But what if we reframed our understanding of 666? What if instead of fearing it, we saw it as a challenge, an opportunity to confront our own spiritual shortcomings, overcome our fears, and embark on the path to redemption? The first step in this process is to recognize that 666 is a symbol of imperfection, but not of finality. It represents where humanity currently stands in its spiritual journey, not as a final destination, but as a starting point for growth. The very fact that we are aware of our imperfections, our struggles, and our limitations is a sign that we are on the right path. The journey of the soul is not one of instant perfection, but of gradual refinement. Each step we take towards understanding and transcending our imperfections brings us closer to the divine. In this sense, 666 becomes a mirror, a reflection of our lower nature, our ego, and our attachment to materialism. When we confront this number, we are called to examine the areas of our lives where we are still living in fear, control, and separation. It is a reminder that the work of spiritual awakening requires us to let go of these attachments and embrace a higher, more harmonious way of being. The path to redemption is not one of escaping the material world, but of transforming our relationship with it. Instead of seeing 666 as an omen of doom, we can see it as a symbol of the work that remains for us to do. Spiritual redemption is not a one-time event, but a continuous process of awakening and self-realization. Just as 6666 is not a static number, neither is the process of redemption. Each time we confront the fear, the darkness, and the ego within ourselves, we are taking another step toward liberation. The journey of redemption is not about achieving perfection overnight. It's about embracing the process of growth, understanding, and transformation. This idea of continuous spiritual growth is echoed in many ancient traditions. In Kabbalah, for instance, the concept of tikkun olam, the healing or repair of the world, emphasizes the need for individuals to work on themselves in order to bring about collective healing. Each act of personal redemption, each step we take toward overcoming our lower nature, has a ripple effect on the world around us. Just as the individual works towards spiritual refinement, so too does society at large. 666 in this sense is not just a symbol of personal struggle, but of collective transformation. When humanity collectively understands and transcends its imperfections, the entire world is healed. In this way, the path to redemption is not about escaping suffering or avoiding challenges. It's about recognizing that suffering is a natural part of the human experience, and that it provides an opportunity for growth. 66 is a reminder that imperfection is not something to be feared or ashamed of. It's an inevitable part of the journey. But it's also a reminder that imperfection does not define us. We have the power to transform ourselves, to evolve beyond our limitations, and to step into our highest potential. To truly understand 666, we must move beyond its superficial associations with evil and destruction. We must see it as a symbol of the work that lies ahead, a work that is not to be feared, but to be embraced. Redemption comes when we accept our imperfections, confront our fears, and choose to grow in love and wisdom. The number 666 is not a mark of damnation. It is a mark of potential for spiritual awakening, transformation, and liberation. In esoteric traditions, the process of spiritual awakening is often described as a form of alchemy, the transformation of the base self into the higher self. Just as lead is transmuted into gold, so too is the human soul transmuted from a state of ignorance and fear into a state of divine enlightenment. In this alchemical process, 666 represents the base material, the lead of our spiritual nature, while the journey towards spiritual perfection is the process of transformation. It's not about rejecting the lower self, but about refining it, transmuting it into something higher. The alchemical transformation is not easy. It requires deep introspection, a willingness to confront our own darkness, and a commitment to spiritual practice. But it also brings immense rewards. As we face our imperfections, we learn to transcend them, and in doing so, we come closer to our true nature. The journey toward redemption is not about striving for perfection in the conventional sense. It's about striving for greater understanding, greater compassion, and greater love. It's about recognizing that we are all connected, and that the path to redemption is a collective journey, not just an individual one. Ultimately, the number 666 is a reminder that redemption is always within reach. It's not an event that happens in the future, but something that can happen in the present moment. Every time we choose to confront our fears, our ego, and our attachments, we take a step towards spiritual liberation. Every time we choose love over fear, unity over division, we are engaging in the alchemical process of transformation. And every time we choose to rise above the forces of oppression, both external and internal, we are embodying the true meaning of 666, the mark of human potential waiting to be realized. As we continue on our spiritual journey, let us remember that 666 is not something to be feared, but something to be understood and embraced. It is a symbol of our journey from imperfection to divine wholeness, a reminder that the path to redemption is long, but worth every step. As we conclude this exploration of the real meaning behind 666, it's clear that what we've been taught about this number, its association with doom destruction, and the Antichrist only scratches the surface. In truth, 66 holds a much deeper spiritual significance, one that challenges us to look within ourselves and confront the forces that limit our spiritual growth. It is not a sign of inevitable evil, but a symbol of the imperfection that marks humanity's journey toward enlightenment. We have seen how the number 666, when viewed through the lens of history, is intimately tied to the Roman Emperor Nero, whose tyranny and persecution of early Christians became the very essence of the beast in Revelation. Yet, as we've discussed, the number's symbolism extends far beyond any single historical figure. In Revelation, it is presented as a challenge to humanity, calling us to discern and overcome the oppressive forces, both internal and external, that bind us to lower states of being. Rather than focusing on future apocalyptic events, we should see 666 as a timeless symbol of humanity's struggle with imperfection and the potential for transformation. We also explored the deeper esoteric meaning of 666, recognizing it as a symbol of the soul's journey from ignorance to enlightenment. In the age of Aquarius, as humanity moves towards spiritual awakening, 666 becomes a mirror for each individual's spiritual state, showing us the places within ourselves where we are still trapped in fear, materialism, and ego. But it also provides a roadmap for overcoming these limitations, guiding us toward a more harmonious and enlightened way of living. 6 then is not to be feared, but understood as a symbol of the soul's potential for growth. In confronting the beast within our fears, doubts, and attachments, we are called to rise above the forces that keep us rooted in material existence and embrace our higher nature. The journey is not easy, but it is one that leads to personal and collective redemption. Just as the caterpillar transforms into the butterfly, so too does the soul undergo a process of refinement, moving from imperfection towards spiritual perfection. As we stand on the precipice of a new era, the age of Aquarius beckons us to awaken to a higher understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The 66666 once seen as a symbol of evil is now revealed as a call to spiritual action, a reminder that the path to redemption is within our reach. It is a number that invites us to look beyond the surface-level fears and misconceptions that have shaped our understanding and embrace a more profound truth. In this new age, the collective consciousness is shifting. People around the world are waking up to the interconnectedness of all beings and the need for spiritual unity. We are entering a time where love, compassion, and spiritual awakening are becoming the driving forces in our lives. And in this context, 666 serves as a powerful symbol of the challenges that lie ahead, but also the boundless potential for transformation. Now we must ask ourselves, what is our role in this transformation? As we move through life, we are presented with choices that shape our spiritual journey and determine the level of consciousness we embody. Will we continue to live in fear and attachment, bound by the chains of materialism and ego? Or will we rise above these forces, embracing our true divine potential and contributing to the awakening of humanity? The choice is ours. The number 666 in its true form is a symbol of that choice. It represents our spiritual struggle, but also our potential for transcendence. It challenges us to confront the imperfections within ourselves and society and move toward a higher state of consciousness. It is a symbol of the journey from darkness to light, from fear to love, from imperfection to divine wholeness. As we conclude, I invite you to reflect on the true meaning of 666 in your own life. What does this number represent for you? How can it inspire you to take steps toward your own spiritual awakening and redemption? The answers to these questions lie within you, for the journey of self-discovery and transformation is unique to each individual. But know this, you are not alone on this path. We are all in this together as we move toward a new era of spiritual enlightenment and collective consciousness. Let us embrace the lessons of 666 and allow them to guide us toward the realization of our highest potential. The number is not a mark of fear, but a mark of the soul's journey, its struggle, its growth, and its eventual return to divine wholeness. As we continue to navigate this spiritual path, may we remember that we have the power to transcend our imperfections, overcome our fears, and rise to meet the challenges that lie ahead. The road to redemption is long, but it is also filled with limitless possibilities. 666 is not a symbol of destruction. It is a symbol of spiritual awakening, a call to action, a reminder that the work we do today will shape the future for generations to come. As we move forward, let us rise above fear, let go of attachment, and embrace the divine potential that lies within us all. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May the wisdom of 666 guide you toward a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the universe. And may you find the strength to continue on your path to redemption and spiritual enlightenment.